in 3 to 4 days, mold will grow. That's a great sign. There's not much preservative or anything, right? So here, I haven't found one. So if you guys know a good one, let me know. Also seafood, right? It's by the nation, by the ocean, but I haven't seen really fresh seafood. In New York City, there are a lot of these shops that supply seafood to the Michelin star restaurants, and their fresh fish was never frozen. Once you freeze the fish, you change the flavor. So I like to ask for some tips, and they'll help you out. And the other thing is, I totally agree with Dr. Ghaffari. Get your fruits and vegetables from the farmers market. So I'm fortunate to live near the Mariner Church Farmers Market. That's supposed to be one of the best in Orange County.
Saturday morning.
Saturday morning, this morning actually. So I usually buy fruits from them and vegetable. I know they're good. Why? If I leave on the countertop, within 3 to 4 days, there will be fruit flies. There will be things growing without water, which means they're not soaked in pesticides. Otherwise, no fly, no insects will touch them. So that's a good way. And when you smell it, it smells fresh. So the best way to pick good food supply is through smelling. They may look great in the supermarket, but if you smell and there's nothing there, they've been sitting there for weeks. So these are totally agree with Dr. Safari. Eat real food and only take supplements when there's a compelling reason, like your blood level is super low and so on. So now let's go back to my talk. It's about sleep. So try this, improving sleep before having to take a sleeping pill. You know the best way to fall asleep?
Not waking up.
No?
Reading.
No? Listen to my talk for half an hour. It's so boring that you fall asleep. So take my talk and play it before you go to bed. Okay, that's it. End of the lecture. No, I'm just kidding. So when I have some friends who are very successful business people, and they're pretty healthy. They're not cancer patients, right? Even though I work mostly with cancer patients in my clinic. So I asked them, what do you really need from the healthcare world, right? What can we do as doctors or other healthcare professionals for you that is most important thing? Take a guess. The number one thing, no. The number one thing is live long. Anti-aging, live forever, right? That's everyone wants that. So number two, so that's the health span, lifespan we're talking about. Number two is actually, you're right, sleep. These people, they're super successful, but they have a lot of pressure. There's so many things on stake on their plate, busy, also big responsibilities. And they're talking about billions of dollars, millions of dollars, and they constantly think about that, so they couldn't go to sleep. So they say, if you can do something for me on that, it'll be great. Because right now, I'm drinking 8 ounces of whiskey every night. If I don't do that, I cannot fall asleep. And we know whiskey causes, if you drink that much every night, you're going to have all kinds of cancer from the tip of your lip, down the throat, esophagus, gastric, liver, pancreas, right? And other types of pop a pill. And the pill, yes, works, but oftentimes the pills do not give them good, refreshing sleep. It's artificial sleep. Your sleep, if you look at the neuroscience of sleep, it's actually very complex. There are multiple pathways. If you just use a pill, it targets one pathway. It's just kind of sweep things under the carpet that you're actually not addressing the whole issue, whole problem. So your brain does not get the rest. So the first thing, we have to define what is a good sleep. Anyone volunteer to define what's a good sleep?
Oh. I can say when you wake up, you feel fresh and energetic.
A deep one.
Yeah. You nailed it. Yeah. So oftentimes in my clinic, I said, do you sleep well? Oh, I sleep well. I slept 8 hours last night. I slept 10 hours. I said, well, how do you feel when you wake up? Do you feel your mind is clear, your body is light, you're like floating, I want to start the day with enthusiasm? No, I feel sore, I feel tired, my mind, I hope I can sleep more, but even though I slept 8 hours, 10 hours, but I couldn't fall asleep again. So it's really how your body feels when you wake up. It's not the number of hours. There are people who just sleep. Everyone is different. Some people sleep 4 hours is enough. They can go on the whole day, very energetic, no problem. Some takes 10 hours or 12. So listen to your body and look at how you feel in the morning. And we often know, so sleep like a baby, right? Why do babies sleep well?
But they don't think on what happens tomorrow.
Yeah, they haven't seen all the world, all the problems in the world yet, right? So they're so innocent and they don't know what's going on. So that's the one thing actually, one of the secrets is to block your mind to the outside world, what's going on around us, what's pretty stressed, which is easy to say, hard to do. And we're going to talk about some of the tricks to do that. Another thing, another thing that's good to sleep is dogs. You know, dogs, when they sleep, they sleep. You know, they sleep in dog lie. They don't bother them. You know, they're very good sleepers. Most of them. There are dogs that bark in the middle of the night because a coyote comes by. So that's different. So why do dogs sleep well? Because that's another thing we're going to talk about. They live at the moment. They're moving from moment to moment, right? You can sort them, 5 minutes later, they're happy again. You're petting them. So they don't carry this negative baggage from the past, which human beings tend to carry. We have a lot of bad things happen in our life, and we carry them. I'm saying you're like a hiker. You just go on the hike and pick up every stone, the garbage, put in your bag, and you keep going. Of course, you're tired. You need to dump the stuff, right? Don't pick up these bad things that happen to us. Again, easy to say, hard to do, because we have memories. And memory gives us meaning, and too much memory hurt us. So when you think, what does good sleep? Think about the babies and the dogs. And how important is good sleep? I think we can skip this one slide, because everyone knows, right? So, how do you define insomnia? I just don't sleep well. Is that definition? No. So there's three parts, and they actually involve a different part of the sleep process. So ask yourself, if you have a sleep problem, do you have trouble fall asleep? Do you have trouble staying asleep? Or do you have trouble wake up and cannot go back to return to sleep? These are three different problems. So there are instruments. One is called Pittsburgh Sleep Inventory, PSI. There are all these questionnaires you can fill out. You can go to the website and do a self-assessment. Another thing is you can do wearables. I wear Aura Ring and I got a Whoop, and so they will give you a reading, not 100% accurate, but about 90% correlation with the formal sleep study, and will tell you how much sleep you have and how long it takes for you to go to sleep. You get deep sleep, REM sleep, or shallow sleep, and you go back to sleep quickly. So by doing the questionnaire and the wearables, you get a self-assessment. And I suggest you go home. It's very easy to do. You can download these things on the internet. And once you have trouble 3 nights per week for 3 months, you meet the definition of clinical insomnia. Sometimes we have trouble falling asleep one night, right? Because there's a big deadline tomorrow, I haven't finished. Or I'll give a talk tomorrow, and I haven't had my slides made. Like us, right? We haven't had the slide made until yesterday. So then you worry about it, and you don't sleep well. That's okay. That's not chronic insomnia, because that's our reaction. But there are people with real chronic insomnia. Think about that. 3 nights of a week, you don't sleep well for more than 3 months. That's a terrible life, right? It's no matter what, how much you get for all the other, your health is good otherwise, that's a terrible life. So it is a very important health issue, and it is also a very common health issue. I'm not going to ask people to raise their hand because that's put you on the spot, but you just ask yourself, how is the quality of my sleep, just as we mentioned earlier. So the importance of insomnia, fatigue, number one. So in my line of work, a lot of cancer patients come to me for fatigue. I'm trying to make a fatigue clinic in UCI Health, where we just address this fatigue. The most common reason for fatigue is actually poor sleep. because there are a lot of medical problems in anemia or they're on steroids. But the most common reason for people with fatigue is insomnia. They don't sleep well. So this first thing we do is actually check how well they sleep in the fatigue clinic. And then they have poor concentration, right? When we're sleeping, the brain cells are actually making connections with each other and forming memories. Think about sleep as recharging our cell phone. Every night you charge your cell phone. If you have a very weak power supply in the morning, you look at it, it went from 20% to 50%. So it's like when we don't sleep well, the brain don't get to charge to 100%. Then we cannot function as the best. And then, of course, you got behavior issues, emotional issues, mood issues, and then you also get physical issues, headache, aches and pains, soreness, as I mentioned. When people are chronically sleep deprived, they have more inflammation in the body, so they're just kind of achy all over. So we know sleep is important, not only for our mind, for our energy level, also for our physical issues. So when we look at sleep, we've been talking about sleep for like 20 some years. I've worked in this field for 23, 24 years. And we always tell people, cancer patients, not only getting treatment, how you eat, how you exercise, how you manage stress, how you sleep, do you have a circadian rhythm, how is the social support, the people around you, are they supportive, are they exhausting? All these are important to you. And initially the other doctor says, well, everything's important in cancer treatment, you don't sleep, you probably just feel tired. And now we found actually sleep is very important. The whole circadian rhythm, there is a gene system in every cell, including cancer cells and immune cells. They go up and down because the human being historically goes up, get up when the sun is up, go to sleep when the sun is down, right? So every cell, there's a built-in clock. And there are genes involved, the whole system of genes involved, and they can affect metabolism. In this case, you eat the same food. If you eat in the morning, you're less likely to gain weight if you eat the exact same food in the evening. The same amount, same kind of food, because your metabolism, how you use energy is different. And the lipid storage, right? Again, if you eat very late at night and then you go to sleep, you tend to gain weight. So we always ask people to eat a big breakfast, big lunch, small and early dinner. And metabolism, immune system, also DNA damage. If you don't sleep well, you don't have a circadian rhythm, good circadian rhythm, you sustain more DNA damage. DNA damage means mutation. Mutation, eventually, if you accumulate enough mutation, you get cancer, right? So now the question is, for people who don't sleep, do they increase their risk for cancer? And if you have cancer during treatment, does sleep or circadian rhythm actually matter? Anyone has a question? Answer? Yes and yes. Do you have evidence? We're practicing evidence-based medicine, or just my intuition? Of course, it's obvious, it's common sense. Actually, there are evidence. The evidence, the people who studied it actually got Nobel Prize in 2017. And so initially we said, oh, these are important. They said, no, it's not important. And then after 2017, nobody ever told me the circadian rhythm of sleep is not important anymore. These guys got a Nobel Prize. So you can look up at their work. And Michael Young worked at the Rockefeller University, which is next door to the Sloan Kettering Cancer Center where I was in New York. So we actually invited him to come to give us a talk. And in the talk, he said 40% of the genes related to diseases are linked to the clock gene system. So if you have a messed up clock gene circadian rhythm sleep, you put yourself at the high risk for a lot of diseases. So this is important now, it's being appreciated. So we know it's good for general health, right? How about cancer? So there's a Dr. Masri at the UCI. She actually studied the relationship between sleep, circadian rhythm, and cancer. And she did a lot of these in mice, and she found maybe that actually explains why there are so many young people getting colon cancer. In the past, colon cancer was someone 60, 70 years old. Nowadays, we see a lot of 30, 40-year-old. And she did these experiments showing actually they can change what's going on in the colon cells. And of course, these are mice, but there's a sign that if you have a messed up circadian rhythm, you don't have good sleep, and you create an environment in your body that promotes or makes the body more hospitable to cancer cells. And that is very important. So nowadays, there are emerging evidence, both at the molecular level, cellular level, organism level, like the whole mice, that this can be related. And then we also found if you give chemotherapy to cancer patients, if you give it in the morning, it appears to work better than giving in the evening. If you give immunotherapy, you see that change. And then there's a group that studied these, they look under the microscope, they actually see the difference of how many immune cells are in the tissue attacking cancer in the morning or in the evening. And that's a significant consequence. Because right now we just give chemo or immunotherapy, whatever the clinic schedule are required. But actually there could be a difference. So these evidence are not definitive in human, but in mice, they saw that. So part of my interest in work is actually to study it in human, so that eventually we don't have to change the treatment, you don't have to develop a super blockbuster new drug. It's just how to time and synchronize it with the patient's body and let the patient's body contribute to their own cancer treatment, right? There's a lot of force in our body that we haven't mobilized yet. And the integrated oncology program UCI has is really to do this whole person care, to mobilize every cancer patient, let them play a part in their own treatment. One of them is sleep and circadian, of course, nutrition, exercise, stress management, social environment, and the positive elements in life. Right? What gives you joy? What gives you laughter? What gives you meaning? All these are important. So you can see it's very important not only for general health, but also especially for the line of work I'm doing, it's important for cancer. So what can cause insomnia? So when we see patients with sleep problem, we take an intake, and a lot of things can do that, right? You can see there are a lot of medical problems. If you have a neurological problem, if you're on certain medication that doesn't give you a good sleep, and if you're in constant pain. So the first step of what we do is we evaluate, identify, and remove any easily correctable medical problem. So they could be having a joint pain or back pain. If you relieve that, they sleep better. Postmenopausal women with lots of hot flashes. You resolve that, they sleep better. Otherwise, they'll never sleep well. So the first step is always, that's why you need to see a doctor to have a thorough evaluation. What are the easily correctable issues? And all you have to do is do something, 1 week later, they sleep well. And we don't want to struggle for several months and then miss this. But those are actually uncommon causes. They're there, easily correctable, we need to identify them, but they're not common. Most people, their problem is really just these three: stress, mess up schedule, and bad lifestyle. Mess up schedule, I mean, so I have a deadline tomorrow, I need to stay up all night to do this. Next tomorrow I have another thing. So your circadian rhythm is always messed up. It's never to go to bed at the same time, wake up at the same time. And stress. We all have stressors, but we don't have to have stress. Stress is a reaction to stressors. Nobody is free of stressors. We all have stressors, but in your life you have friends and family, colleagues, who just kind of take everything, okay, yeah, bad, life sucks. Let's carry on. Yeah. And this is what we call the mental resilience, right? You can learn from them. But there are also people, a little bit, things don't go their way, they're stressed out, they cannot sleep. So this is actually, a lot of them are actually pre-programmed genetically, which we cannot do much, but there's also a learnable skill set that you can train and learn how to react to stressors in a way that does not bounce back and hurt us. The stressors hurt us once, you let the stressors create stress, you get the same thing hurt us twice. Not necessary. And lifestyle, when I say lifestyle, it also depends on diet, eating. If you eat a big meal 1 hour before you go to bed, you're not going to sleep well. You can get acid reflux, you will cough, wake up in the middle of the night. And if you do hard exercise right before you go to sleep, also not good. Right? You can take a nice evening stroll, but don't do hard exercise right before you go to sleep. So there are a lot of these subtle things. And when we treat, so that's about what's causing insomnia, what's insomnia is like. So how do we manage that? The first one, of course, we eliminate the medical problem. But if they still have this problem, what do you do? Oftentimes, the physicians or doctors will just prescribe you like Zolpidem, Ambien, or lorazepam, Ativan, or Valium, some medications. Because it works. It works the same night you take it, and it works immediately, and give you a good sleep. But they all have their problem, right? As I mentioned, they have side effects. They are actually very, you can induce dependence. If you look at the chart of all the drugs, heroin, fentanyl, cocaine, marijuana, benzodiazepines actually have a higher addiction potential than a lot of these drugs or illicit controlled substances. So those, what I think, should be the last resort. There are people who just cannot fall asleep. We try everything else. They need it. At least give them some sleep, even though they're not the ideal sleep. The sleep we get from these drugs are not the best sleep. They're not the natural sleep. The benzodiazepine, like Ativan, they only attack one pathway in the brain, not the global pathway. So, are there other choices that serves patients better? I always think, if this patient is my mother, am I going to prescribe Ambien right now, or I should do something else, right? So this is what I always teach my residents: is treat every patient as if he or she is your father or mother. This way, you don't just take what you learn from the textbook and then put the square peg into a round hole. You have to think, what does this patient want? What's important to the patients? What's their priority? And what's the best way to give them something gentle first before you escalate to this medical textbook treatment? So there are actually a lot of these non-drug therapy that's being used. And again, lots of evidence from randomized controlled clinical trials. A lot of them are not well known because every doctor is busy learning their own field, but these things are out there. So it's part of our job is to disseminate this evidence or this knowledge. So here are the one that has been studied with clinical trial evidence. And number one, sleep hygiene for everybody. That's I'm going to talk about. What do I mean by sleep hygiene? Number two, cognitive behavior therapy for insomnia. So cognitive behavior therapy is a fancy word of, say, work it out yourself with the help of a therapist, right? So cognitive means you understand what the problem is, you make an intentional effort to change that, your behavior, and leads to clinical benefit. So a lot of them is about regulating your lifestyle, what you do before you go to bed, what you do after, when you take a nap, how long you should take a nap, all these. So there's a whole system of that. But the people who developed it didn't invent this. They just take a little bit from all over the history. Because a lot of things I'm telling you actually has a long history before Western medicine become really purely allopathic, very pharmacological oriented. Back then, people always have this problem. So a lot of I talked to you about it came from Eastern medicine, especially traditional Chinese medicine. There's a whole system of how to live according to the clock, according to the sun, what you do when, and how to clear your mind so you can go to sleep with an empty, quiet mind. And cognitive behavior therapy takes a little bit here, a little bit there, and put it in a very organized, codified system. So there are psychotherapists doing this. We also, in New York City, we have nurse practitioners trained to do this. And then the sound, voice, music therapy, right? So I was half kidding when I talked earlier. I said, listen to my talk for half an hour, you'll fall asleep. I'm so boring and so monotonic voice and talk like this. Actually, you can do that. Just find someone whose voice will put you to sleep. And
That's true.
I see it could be your family member. Record them for half an hour, lecturing on a boring topic, and while you have hard time falling asleep, just play it next to you. Try it. This costs you nothing. and has no side effects. Well, there could be a side effect on damaging also relationships, but otherwise no side effects. So, and then there are these sound, because there are people studying this, what frequency the vibration creates, promotes sleep in the brain. And music therapy, we know, right? Of course, don't listen to heavy metal music before you go to sleep. Yeah, white noise, or I think the Baroque music, because they are very harmonic, Bach or Mozart, they're very structured and harmonic, and so they said, listen, let baby listen to Mozart, and then they develop the brain, right? I don't know how much evidence there, but there are music therapists who design a repertoire or playlist for people with insomnia, and they do clinical trials, and they saw it actually helped people sleep. Again, low risk, no side effects, and also very pleasant and nurture our brain. Acupuncture. Have you had acupuncture before?
Yes.
Yeah. So acupuncture is almost, sometimes when it works, it's almost like magic, but oftentimes it doesn't work, right? I do a lot of acupuncture research. I do mechanistic research. I scan people's brain to see which part of the brain is activated, which is suppressed. I do randomized controlled clinical trials. And so we see it's hit and miss. So what we really need are these strong multi-center randomized control trials, and there are a lot of them on acupuncture for insomnia. And so far the evidence support it helps. So acupuncture, you put a needle in the body, it's just not anywhere in the body, right? There's special points, and when we study these points, we find if you put a needle there, you can manipulate either with hand, you twist the needle, or electricity, you actually create changes in the brain. The fear center, the limbic system, they're actually suppressed. And the parasympathetic system, the system, the nerve system, if you relax, it's actually activated. So in a way, you can think about acupuncture as a forced relaxation. If someone is forced you to relax, that you cannot resist. You have it at a very low level of your nerve system. So acupuncture, there are also studies on that. Mind-body practice, mindfulness meditation, breathing exercise, body scan. This is the part that's hard to learn. Acupuncture, you come to me, I do it, you feel it. But this requires a lot of investment from the users, from the patients. And some people have it in them, they just learn it very quickly. Some people try it for 3 months, nothing happens, they give up. So this is also where we do so-called patient-centered integrated whole person care. We don't just say, oh, I want to do meditation. No, we look at each individual patient and say, does it work for you? If you ask you to sit still there for 20 minutes doing meditation, you go crazy, don't do it. You do something else. You're running on the treadmill. Running on the treadmill, for a lot of people, is a meditative practice because their mind is empty. You probably have this experience while you're running on the treadmill or you go out, take a walk in the park, all the worry is gone. You're just right there in the right moment, breathe the air, see the scenery, feel life. You're alive. I feel the beauty of nature. That's a meditative practice. So meditation doesn't mean you sit on the chair in the dark room chanting home. You can do every moment. Even right now, we are in a meditative mindfulness moment. We're 100% here. At least I'm 100% here now, right? So mind-body practice, and then you got the body-mind practice. And these are for people who say, well, I can not just sit still here for half an hour. There's no way I train my mind. So well, do something, right? So for meditative practice, we said, sit there, but don't do anything. Most of our life, we said, do something. Don't just sit there, right? That's your program to do that. You don't feel comfortable not doing anything. So here, then we say, okay, do something. You can do yoga, you can do Tai Chi, you can do Qigong. You're actually using the body to bring the mind, to tame the mind. So I call them, I invented this space. Nobody else said that. Body-mind practice. I just flip the mind-body practice. And then we got the natural product, a lot of dietary supplements, has been studied, one way or another. So we're going to talk about that. All right, so sleep hygiene. How much time we have? So develop a really good routine. So you can take a picture of this. I think everyone should do this every day, and I do it. And try to wake up, go to bed about the same time every day. No food 3 hours before sleep. No liquid 1 hour before sleep. right? You go to sleep with a full stomach or full bladder, you're going to be, you're going to wake up. And before sleep, avoid staring at the screen. TV, computer, mobile devices. You can look at your phone to check some urgent message, but don't spend too much time. Because there are people taking melatonin to fall asleep. All these bright lights suppress your own melatonin. So instead of suppress my own melatonin and take the outside melatonin, why don't we just remove the suppression? Right? So avoid these things and don't do anything that requires intense mental activity. Think about planning or think about what happened earlier today. I feel really angry. That guy said a bad word to me. Write that down on a piece of paper, take it outside the bedroom and put it there. So out of your mind, out of your bedroom. And then you kind of feel, okay, I resolved that. I don't have to keep thinking about it. Easy to say, yeah. So that's a great point because these things takes repetition to take. So if you do it once or twice a week or 1 week and then you give up, it's not going to be part of yourself. So they actually did these studies on what makes people develop a new habit. 60 days. You need to consistently do something for 60 days for it to be part of you. Then you don't have to even think about it. It become your second nature, right? We all have our routine before sleep. Some people is look at the phone, some people is brush their teeth or do whatever. Nobody ever forced you to do that. It's part of you already. We rather develop a good habit that will promote our health, both physical health and mental health.
For women, that facial routine every night it takes 30 minutes.
What team?
The facial routine for women.
Yes, yes.
It's a meditative thing.
Yes.
For sleeping.
That's right. Exactly. So even for men, we can do a self-facial massage because most of the time we hold our tension here. That's why people do Botox and inject oil here because this tension makes the muscle contract. So you develop wrinkles. So you just in the morning before you go to sleep, just do a facial massage like that. And I also use a little comb, which is a very hard, big comb. The teeth is about this thick, right? They're not the regular comb, the fur, and you just rub against your temple. And even if you don't have the comb, just use your knuckle. Just do this. Right now, do it. Just do something like this on the side, not for headache. Don't you feel relaxed? It relieves a lot of tension because why? When we build up tension in the body, what do? We clench our jaws. You don't even realize this is biting down. And this is the muscle that makes you bite down. So if you just force it to relax, and you feel great. So before you go to bed, you can also do this. I actually have a little comb. I should have brought it today here on my bedside. So, and then you can take a hot bath or hot shower, right? These are very relaxing. Why? When you dilate the vessel in the skin, you force the activation of the parasympathetic system, which is the relaxing part of the body, right? The sympathetic system is the exciting part.
How about infrared sauna?
Infrared sauna can be good too because so any hot shower, heat, or bath, deep down scientifically, they're infrared. Any heat is infrared. So infrared sauna depends on the wavelengths, but most of the time it does not penetrate the skin. If it's near infrared, it penetrates skin about this much. The far infrared, this much. So in my opinion, it's not as effective and more expensive than just soak it in the hot tub, right? It costs you nothing and give you a more deep relaxation. So relaxation, forced relaxation by using some physical measures. And if you don't have that hot bath in hot time, just put your feet in hot water. Because have you ever had reflexology, right?
Yeah.
Foot massage, especially bottom feet. You feel so relaxed. And when we did it in the integrative oncology clinic, people just fall asleep on the bed. So you can do it yourself. You can just put your feet in hot water and you can do a little bit self massage. So that's also helpful. And then do a gentle yoga stretch. There are these restorative yoga, nighttime yoga videos on the YouTube you can watch. And I have my own routine. So I'll tell you a story. So I was attending a conference. We were attending a conference in Scottsdale, actually Las Vegas. So Las Vegas is yeah, Las Vegas. There is a resort south of Las Vegas, right? It's called Scott some resort, McCormick Resort. Anyway, we're short in money, so the hospital said no, you cannot live in a hotel room by yourself. You have to share hotel rooms. Right? So I shared my hotel room with my colleagues, who was a fellow at that time, and he arrived in the afternoon. He was calling me. He said, "Oh, they won't let me check in because it's under your name. Where are you?" I didn't respond at all. Why? Because I was no, it was Phoenix, not Las Vegas. Now I remember. I went to the Grand Canyon and did a race to bottom and up hike that day. So I came back the same day. I arrived and the rental car. I went there, went down, and come back, and I drove back. So when he was calling me, I was in an area there's no cell phone reception. So we shared a room, and finally at 2 a.m. I came back and he got a room. And then he said, "You need to pay me back. You create so much trouble for me. You owe me something." I said, "Well, I can teach you how to do bedtime yoga." So I taught him. It's a young fellow, 30-year-old man. I said, "Do this." So I taught him to do the bedtime yoga. And then the next morning, the first day, of course, he didn't sleep very well because of what happened. The second day, in the morning, his alarm went off, and he didn't wake up. He said, "This is the deepest sleep I ever had." And I never said the alarm did not wake me up. And I was sleeping so deeply that the alarm didn't wake me up. And this is a real story. His name is Kevin Liu. He's currently a faculty at Stone Campus. So if you met with him, he said, "Did this story Dr. Deng tell us is real?" He said, "Yes, it's real." So bedtime yoga, why it works? Because when you're stretching the arms and legs, you're stretching the tendon. You're stretching the myofascia. When you're stretching the myofascia, you create a change in the brain and release all these happy hormones, right? You want to do yoga or whatever, you feel happy afterwards. So that reduces some of the stress. And other thing is the physical environment, keep the room quiet, cool, and dark. We all know that. And also limit daytime napping. Is napping good or bad?
Very good.
Great, I'm in the right room, with the right crowd. Because throughout human history, we always take naps. If you look around the cultures around the world, people always take a siesta nap. Why? Because if you measure the melatonin level, there's a big peak in the night, there's a small peak in the middle of the day, which means we're biologically programmed to do the nap. And I learned this from Cornell University Sleep Center, the director there. She gave a talk about that. I was, oh, wow, that explains why I want to take a nap every day. But my work schedule won't let me. So I need to file a workers' comp because my health is damaged. But what's important is if you do take a nap, don't take too long. Right? So if you're retired, take a nap. If you don't have to work through the day, take a nap. So napping is good, but not too much. How long? 20, 30 minutes. Sometimes you cannot fall asleep if you not just close your eyes for 15 minutes. You'll see a big difference in your energy level.
Doc,
1 hour, sometimes it depends on the person. If it's too much, sometimes you actually have a hard time
That's
falling
how
asleep.
Persians are. After eating a big meal, they have to go to take an hour.
That's probably because of big
Doctor.
food, right?
we have a live demonstration at the back.
Yeah.
Taking a nap.
They're always.
I told you. No, don't do that. Don't do that. This is great. This is the end of one trial of the efficacy of my talk.
Your voice works.
One patient, yeah. End of one trial. You know you take the trial, somehow you don't have enough patients, you just do it in one patient, it's called end of one trial.
I was working somewhere and I asked the director, can we have a quiet room for just 20 minutes to kind of close our eyes?
Uh-huh.
And then he told me that was the silliest request that I've ever heard.
Yeah.
This is the American lifestyle.
Yeah, so that's why we do all this educational effort to make the general public appreciate that. Actually, it can become people can become more productive. Then it's not just the time, the clock you put in. It's really how function your mind, how highly functional your mind is, and this nap and rest make you highly functional. All right. What time should I stop talking? I can go on for the whole
When
day.
everybody's
Until everybody.
When everyone's
When
sleeping,
everybody's
great. Yeah. So, yeah, that's a tough call. All right. So we talk about all these. Oh yeah, this is one of the example of bedtime yoga. You can see it's nothing fancy. You basically lie on the floor, twisting, turning, and basically stretching and relaxing. Right? So you can do a Google search for bedtime yoga. There are a lot of them. Some are harder than others. So watch a few, pick the one that will stick with you. That means, oh, I see. I watch this. I can totally do this. And then set an alarm. So I always tell people, do not set an alarm in the morning. Set your alarm in the evening. Because if you set your alarm at 7 p.m., 7 a.m., you wake up, I mean, you haven't completed